Welcome to Midweek Live. So glad that you guys are joining us today. My name's Kim. I have Whitney Bunker with me today. Thanks for being here, Whitney.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. So if you've never heard her name before, I can't imagine that you haven't. City Without Orphans. You are the founder, CEO, head of it all. And fun fact, you and Daniel actually were here North Pointers
Absolutely.
a while back. Daniel was our college pastor for a while, and I believe you guys were kind of starting the journey of adoption in those years.
Absolutely.
And gosh, I'm so glad to see you.
I know. It feels like it's been forever, and so much has gone on in the last, I think it was about 7-8 years ago that we, church was involved in church planning. And anyways, it's exciting to just to see the growth of your church and the people and what God's doing in their life. And
And I want to talk about this amazing ministry, City Without Orphans. And tell me, like, what so somebody watching, clearly they're hearing the word orphan, so they know this has to do with adoption. But tell me, what is City Without Orphans?
Yeah, so we, meaning my husband and I, actually are co-founders together, and I am the CEO, and we just had a vision that our city would be known for caring for our most vulnerable children, and that is oftentimes kids in foster care, kids who've been adopted, and I was working as a social worker, so that's what I have my degree in, and that's the field that I felt God was calling me to, and then I was pastor's wife, right? And so I was seeing, like, all these needs of kids over here, and then churches over here, and businesses over there, and the government foster care system in another place. And I'm like, wait a second, what are we doing to bridge these gaps? Because there's a lot of existing resources within our communities, within our churches, within our businesses for the needs of children. Whether that be family, tangible goods, mentorship, resources are available. And so I started giving this vision of a bridge that would kind of bring those entities together. And that's really where we formed City Without Orphans. So we leverage existing resources within the community to meet the foster care and adoption community's needs. So we are 10 years old. We're a decade old. We have double digits now.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Wow.
It's kind of surreal. And we are constantly morphing. I think it's important the needs change and that we be flexible and adaptable and open to where God is leading and what we hear the needs are in this portion of our organization compared to when we started 10 years ago.
So it's kind of changed and developed over time to, like, fit the needs specifically. Do you happen to know how many kids are in need of a home in, like, the Fresno area? Do you happen to have, like, any idea what that number could sound like?
Sure. So we'll just start at how many kids are in foster care, out of placement care in the Central Valley. It's about 5,000. So Fresno County, but the surrounding counties, right? Because we've got Kings, Tulare, Madera, all those places. It's a good chunk of kids. Only a certain portion of those kids actually need a permanency adoptive home. The rest of those kids are working a reunification track, trying to get back to their parents who are trying to get help to heal and be parents that could be safe and stable for them, or family members. We get people all the time that contact us, and they've got a cousin, a nephew, a grandchild, and so those kids are also trying to reunify with other biological family members or mentors, teachers, church members who are like extended family to children. So that's kind of like what we see when we're looking at our kids in the Central Valley right now. And like I said, only a portion of them. The county doesn't give us numbers on how many need to be adopted, but that's just a fraction of that big number.
Are you still involved in social work in what you do now? I mean, I can't imagine doing that and City Without Orphans would probably be a lot, but do you still do both?
Well, I am doing social work in a macro level. So there's micro social work and macro social work. And micro is more like case management work, like if I worked at a foster care agency and I had a caseload.
Yeah.
What I'm doing now is big systems.
Yeah.
It's more systems work, which is macro. So I believe I'm still doing social work, but it just looks different. Yeah.
Yeah, that totally makes sense, 100%. What was this journey like? And so ultimately, you guys have adopted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was something that was a catalyst for us. We always knew, my husband and I, that we wanted to adopt. And we were starting this organization and then at the same time feeling called to start our family through adoption, which is really unique because most people tell you have quote unquote your own kids first, which by the way, we don't like to say your own. My adopted kids are
yours.
Mine.
Yeah.
But biological. People say, have biological kids and then adopt. And that is for some people. And for other people, it's not. Plan A, for them is, hey, I want to grow my family through adoption. So we started that process very intentionally and put our answers in pencil and really gave God that eraser. And we went into it really thinking okay, we're going to do 0 to 3, Lord. We have this plan ready. We're going to have a biological child and then adopt a third. And that was our plan. And we ended up having a 5-year-old that was presented to us to adopt, not as 0 to 3, not a baby or a toddler.
Right.
But that was clearly God's path that was presented ahead of us. I don't necessarily think it was God's plan that our daughter's first family broke apart.
Right.
So I'm careful with saying that it was God's plan, but it was the path, right, that He chose for us to go on with her. And so that process kind of launched us into being parents. 5-year-old at 26 and 28. So fun times. That was huge part of that.
You said
journey.
2 things in that. I want to kind of hit those again. There's 2 things that stood out to me. Number 1, you said you and Daniel just knew that adoption was like the path for you. How are those conversations started? Who started it? Who felt like I need to say this? In a marriage, you do have to say the things that are on your heart. But who went first? Was it something you just both were like, oh my gosh, yes, that's it. I want to do this.
Right.
And
yeah, I think it was both of us at the same time for us, but I think very specifically when we were starting the organization and prior to that, me working in foster care as a social worker, we were seeing so many needs of kids, and we were seeing that kids needed homes, and having my husband participating and coming to the events where kids were there and serving with me and getting involved, stepping out in faith. And it's not just numbers.
Yes.
I think for a long time it was just numbers, and now here's names. This is a real kid, and these are real sibling sets, and this is their names. And I think that got real for him. I think the combination of us being young, our passion to just do what we felt like was on our heart and not worry about what other people wanted to dictate towards us, oh no, you should grow your family this way.
I was going to say, how much did you battle that with people around you?
I did have comments from the peanut gallery. Thankfully, our families, the grandparents, were very supportive, but there were comments from the peanut gallery. So so you have to filter through those things. But I think it got to the point where it was we started this organization. This was so on our heart. And we were why wait? Why do we have to wait? There's really nothing stopping us. And at that point, that's when we were all right, we're ready to take the classes and start the process.
Wow. So. And then the other thing you said, and I loved it, you said, we wrote our stuff down in pencils and gave God the eraser. What does that really look like? Is that just a lot of prayer together? Is that just a lot of confirmation? This is what I feel the Lord saying to me. Are you feeling Him say the same thing? And then moving forward, almost just Armin, what does that look like?
Yeah, it's very practical. I think it's faith, and it's trust and surrender. Like it's big surrendering, not my will, but yours. Laying down your expectations, your motivations, and things that you really have in your mind that you want, and being open to what does a child need. I think there's nothing wrong with growing your family or starting your family through adoption because of infertility and miscarriage. I mean, part of our story is that we went on to try to have biological kids, didn't know. We didn't try to get pregnant before we adopted our first. Tried to get pregnant, then had 5 miscarriages, couldn't figure out why we couldn't keep our pregnancies. So I get that side of it too. We've walked through so much loss biologically as well. But I think
you're saying that happened after you had the 5-year-old?
After.
Yeah. Okay.
Between our 2 girls, because then we adopted again.
Yeah.
An infant. That one was infant domestic adoption. But I think it's just really that surrender and laying that down. And then being open and honest about conversations about, okay, here is what I can handle. Like, I want to be honest. I do a disservice to a child or myself if I'm trying to feel like, oh, I should take a child this age or I should do this. And at the same time, precious children suffer when we walk in fear.
Yeah, we put like boxes around only if it fits within this, right?
Right. So the balance of, okay, I don't think this is necessarily wise for my family, whatever place the thing in. But also, hey, I'm not supposed to walk in fear. And so I want to be open and honest and not have control. The reality is control is an illusion for any of us as parents. So becoming a parent biologically, through step parenting, through adoption, through what are all the different ways? Kinship, care, guardianship. You don't have control.
Yeah.
It's just an illusion. I could have had a biological child and birthed them all the way through term.
Right.
And something could have happened in the womb, right?
Right. Yeah.
We could have had a disability or special needs, but I would not love that child any less.
Yeah.
It is my child. I don't have control. The same with adoption.
Yeah.
We don't have control on all the bits and pieces of that story, and we have to be willing to lay that control down.
That is such great advice. So let's say, and I think that's great advice for somebody listening right now who has maybe felt that tug. They feel like this is the path. Maybe they've even come to that agreement together, this is the path, but they're going, what are actually the next steps in this process? I heard you say when we decided to go through, there's classes apparently. See, I wouldn't even know where to begin. There's classes. How do you find out all that? Is that where City Without Orphans helps to bridge that?
Yes, we do have some support service, some coaching and consulting that we do for families that are like, I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. We do have resources for that. But you're going to start with an agency and you're going to do your research. I don't tell families where to go. I won't say like, oh, you should go here. I tell them interview multiple agencies, sit down and talk, go to the orientation, call them and ask questions, 2 to 3, so you can compare and contrast. And I feel like a lot of people, when they actually do their homework and they research those places, they kind of feel like, you know what, I just sense in my spirit or I have a peace about this particular place. And so I think it's important to do your research. What can be really easy for people to do, but you have to be careful, is word of mouth. So-and-so from your church went through one agency. Doesn't mean it's going to be a good fit for you. I'm not saying don't look into it, but don't be that only choice you make based off the person giving you that kind of, oh, well, we went here. Make that one of a few that you consider.
I love that. That is so helpful. And I'm sure because people if they've never done it, they just don't know. And it kind of gives them freedom to go, oh, wait, I can do that. It's so funny because even as you said, I thought, oh, you can do that? Like, you can actually kind of shop around who you want to actually have you guide through this process. I love that. I think that's fantastic. I would love for us to talk. So adoption is clearly a large part of City Without Orphans, but I love that you've also hit on foster care. Do you feel like one is more important is there a need that's more important than the other in that system?
Yeah. So both are really important. I hate to say one is more important than the other, but
Right.
where is the dire need?
Yeah.
Foster care.
It is.
And I'll just be real because that's just the way I am. If anyone
Yeah.
knows me, most people we come in contact with don't want to foster. They want to adopt. Because
Yeah.
fostering's risk. Because you don't foster for permanency's sake.
Right.
Sometimes you get an opportunity to be a permanent plan and be a forever family for a child you foster?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That does happen. And statistically, if you do it long enough, it happens to almost everyone to have the opportunity to say yes to adoption.
Yeah.
But it's not the goal. The goal is reunification, again, like I mentioned, with bio parents, bio family.
Right.
And so that is harder and uncomfortable and costs us a lot. And that's the one that we just don't have as many people.
When you say
wanting
cost
to.
you a lot, you mean emotionally,
Correct.
mentally, physically. There's a taxation on a person.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
Yes, it is take up your cross and follow me kind of cost because you're entering into a very broken system. And a lot of trauma. You don't always know when you are getting a child that is coming into your home at 2 a.m. what is exactly going on with that child. You have the information that's in front of you. Or you get a child that's been in multiple homes and you are trying your best to love them with all you are and embrace them and yet also let them go. The dichotomy of like loving them unconditionally and also holding them with open hands and open hearts to say, this isn't my forever child, but while I have them, I'm going to be there for them and I'm going to champion them and be part of the team that tries to help bring reconciliation, which is so close to God's heart, Kim. Reconciliation is the gospel.
No, for sure.
This is definitely something I think that I'm praying more people step into.
Yeah. You know, I know people that have fostered, and I've seen the difficulties. I've seen the struggles within that. My parents were actually we took in a family member when they were in high school, and I remember, having that person come into our home and I mean, I love her like a sister. We experienced high school together. She was quite a few years older than me, but they come from her experience. Her life was just so very different. It was so different. And I know we as a family went to counseling. I know she did individual counseling. I know we did family counseling. I know we did individual counseling. Is that like still a standard practice? Are there support groups people can go to kind of work through that stuff?
Great question, Kim. So this is really the shift that City Without Orphans has decided that we are going to focus on. So we spent a decade recruiting foster and adoptive families, and we've helped hundreds of families start the process, and we've helped thousands of foster youth and equipping parents to start the journey. But what about post-placement? What about after you bring a child home? What is going on there? So we just launched a thing called City of Support, and it's on our website at citywithoutorphans.com. And this is the key thing that we kind of surveyed over the last decade, is that so many of these agencies, and rightfully so, that they can't meet all the needs. Like foster care and adoption agencies can only do so much. But most of them, many of them, really lack those support services, referrals, support systems to be able to do this. So we were seeing there wasn't enough trauma training, there wasn't enough parent support, there wasn't enough mental health referrals going out, social emotional support too. Any kind babysitting, like any kinds of things like that. That's what we were getting hit up left and right, Kim. And we, in our own personal journey of adopting again, and the ups and downs of that, and having a child, our youngest is incredible, and some of you may know her that's listening to this podcast. But she has some special needs, and just seeing that people wrapping around us and support we're getting, we just know that is the missing link, bridging those gaps again, right? So, yes, there are support groups in the community. There are virtual ones in person. We just launched a mental health grant. So, we're providing $600 to $1,000
Wow.
grants for foster adoptive families. And that can be, Kim, not just, and I love how you talked about your whole family. There's a lot of restrictions sometimes. It's like only the foster youth, only the adoptee get
Right.
the mental health support.
Right.
No, the whole family
We all
system is
needed it.
affected by it. And secondary trauma is a real thing. It is real. I'm in therapy. My husband's been in therapy.
Right.
My kids have been in
Right.
therapy because we all have to process these things in a healthy way with a safe person. And siblings should have the right to that too. So we're even offering saying, if you are a foster family and you have biological kids who are on this journey with you, and boy, they are weary.
Yeah.
Use these grants, use
Wow.
these directories. We have a trauma-informed directory on our website. It's a PDF download, and it has therapists, and it has doctors, dentists, OTs, speech therapists, all kinds of businesses that are trauma-informed.
Yeah.
And people can access those resources if they don't already know a clinician or an agency that they want to work with. We
Right.
give a list. So
That's fantastic. Yeah, I feel like oftentimes people, it feels like, at least in our system, it was a little bit different, right? Because we were a next of kin type of situation, right? So it expedited the situation much different than someone you've never met before coming into your home.
Correct.
And so, but I do know, and but I don't know now where it stands, but I do know that it must feel a lot like, okay, here you go, and we've done our job. And we close the book on that and we walk away. And yet this family, right, and this family is like, whoa, okay, this is great. And I'm so glad that we're doing it. I mean, being the age we were, right, we were teenagers and we were brought up in the church. And so we knew we were like excited because it was like, yay, our cousin's going to come stay with us.
Right.
And, you know, each person, you think of each person experiencing this, each person had their concerns. You know, parents had this concern of like, oh my goodness, the influence is now this outside influence, which we always worried about, is now inside of our home. How do we do this? Did we do the right thing before? You know, did we make the right decision? And we're excited and we're seeing some things modeled for us that we had never seen modeled for us before, and learning how to communicate and stuff. So you're saying your City Without Orphans is this great in-between place that goes, hey, I know that you feel like they've just closed the door on your file.
The adoption happened. Right.
And that's done. You're good now, and you're not good now. And so this is a place where you can go to actually find the next steps and seek out help and be equipped with therapists and counselors, and because you want to see success.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and adoption doesn't stop at finalization for those who are adopting. It's a lifelong journey, literally.
Yeah. Yes.
The other huge thing that I think has significantly changed the trajectory of our organization and even my own journey is listening to adoptees, listening to former foster youth. We have so many more hands-on work, whether that's board members, we've had multiple interns that are adoptees, speakers, different people who are former foster youth that are giving back and mentoring. We need to listen and lean into that adoption triad of birth, family, adoptee, adoptive parent. We need to lean in and listen to what their needs are and what they're thinking and feeling, and invalidating those and giving them voice. And so it's also helped us understand kind of where we're missing the mark in this field, and who's a missing piece in that. And through listening to families and listening to these youth, I think we've really come to a place where we're like, this is the true need. This is the true gap. Because the work we did with recruiting families, it's self-sustaining, quite honestly. There's a bunch of churches that have orphan care ministries that are parents that came through our classes are equipping other parents to start the process. And it's like this domino effect. And I want to see long-term success, and I want to see healthy relationships.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Well, that's actually where the win
families.
is, right? It's not just, oh, they're in a safe home now.
Yeah.
That doesn't actually answer all of the questions, because there's actually just an influence there. There's a consistency. There's a stability. And although the place, the room itself provides some of that, the influence happens when the people that person is now being raised by, right? And we want to see like a change in the trajectory of like an adoptee or a foster child and their experience from this moment
Yes.
on instead of them rotating into another foster home.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's a vicious cycle. And I know for, again, the family members that that was happening to, that, in some cases, one of the brother of the cousin, he couldn't be with us. And so he ended up going through lots and lots of different foster homes. And so we can see the two differences between the two. Whitney, and I'm sure this is just a huge question to ask you, but how has just adoption and foster, how has it changed your life? I mean,
Wow. Yeah. I feel like it has really refined me. Like God has used it in my life to provide healing and understanding and growth. There is a developmental psychologist named Dr. Karen Purvis that says you cannot take a child where you have not been yourself. And when you start fostering and adopting, it will bring up your own stuff. And we all have stuff. I have a great family. Everybody knows that. And my family knows that too.
Right.
And yet I still have things like that, personal things and, family system things. It's just, that's just life. And it will bring those things out. And just being able to be looking those things in the face and really just saying, okay, God, I'm ready to do this with you because I want to be the best parent that I can be. I want to be the best follower of Jesus that I can be. And it's not going to be easy if I don't address those things in my life. And I think that is the biggest impact that it's made on me. And Daniel is just forcing us to really be dependent on God and dependent on healing and the hard work of taking care of our mind, our body, our soul, all of those things. It's the most incredible thing, and it's been the hardest thing.
Yeah. It's like the sweet spot of the Lord, right? Like that's his sweet spot. Well, I know that I get you going, but I just want to encourage you, anybody listening, maybe foster and adoptive, not your thing. I'm sure you can give to this ministry. I've got a link right there for you. So just citywithoutorphans.com. You heard Whitney say that. You can get involved on lots of different levels, I'm sure. You can volunteer, you can give money, you can also, be one of the families that are walking through those doors. And so we just want to encourage you in that journey. Be prayerful in whatever way God wants to work and move in you. We're seeing that is where this has been birthed from. And so we would hope that you would approach it in the same way. Thank you so much for joining. Hopefully we can have you on in the weeks and years to come.
Oh gosh, I would love to talk more. Yeah.
I love it.
Thanks.
I love it. Thank you so much, Whitney.
All right.
Go and make it a great rest of your week. We'll see you on Sunday, guys. Have a good one. Bye.